everybody. Welcome to CBS News Bay Area's special presentation celebrating Black History Month. I'm Vern Glenn. We're highlighting some of the trailblazers and difference makers across our region. Some who have had an impact seen and unseen for decades, and those paving the way for future generations. That said, let's start with Dr. Harry Edwards. Our Lynn Ramirez sat down with the man behind one of the most iconic moments in Olympic history.
Today, the biggest problem that America has is that we're afraid of each other. The biggest problem that we have is that we're afraid of change.
Sociologist and civil rights icon Dr. Harry Edwards says in 2025, America has reached an inflection point.
To the extent that we don't face up to that challenge, there are some very, very, very dark days ahead, because I'm not convinced that we have the best and the brightest people making critical decisions, top to bottom, in American society. We can't go back. To make America great again, even if we could define a point of agreement in terms of when America was great in the 1920s, when we had an epidemic of lynching.
At 82 years old, Edwards is still speaking up and speaking out on issues of race and equality, politics, society, and sports, just as he did as a student athlete and sociology professor at San Jose State in the 1960s. While earning his PhD from Cornell, he organized the Olympic Project for Human Rights, which led to fellow Spartans Tommie Smith and John Carlos raising their gloved fists on the medal stand during the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City. The moment, which was at first widely denounced, is now immortalized by this larger-than-life statue on the SJSU campus.
San Jose State was perfect in terms of size, in terms of culture. Those contacts were there, but at the same time, it wasn't structured so tightly and so tightly run and controlled that it was oppressive. So it created an environment where it was possible to dream big dreams of change and actually to begin to institute them. And we had the world-class athletes there who could bring attention to these types of issues.
Today, Edwards, professor emeritus at UC Berkeley, worries about the impact of a chaotic social media environment and artificial intelligence.
We have an information glut where the issue, first of all, is to decide what is fake and what is real, what is substantive and what is simply concocted.
He's also concerned about the absence of athletes willing to take a stand on social issues and understands why.
Colin Kaepernick took a stand, and it was made crystal clear there's a huge price to pay.
But he says in American society, new social movements and leaders will always emerge.
One of the things that has become quite clear is that women are going to play an increasing role in that next effort, in that next step. But the one thing that I am absolutely positive about is that she's on her way.
Edwards was recently honored by the 49ers as the team's 2024 Inspire Change Changemaker, an award given annually to people who make a difference in their community. He was first hired by coach Bill Walsh as a team consultant and has been involved in recruiting black talent for front office positions across major league sports. But recently, health concerns have slowed his steps. He's battling bone cancer, which was diagnosed as terminal.
We can't always choose what comes our way, but typically we have some options in choosing how we're going to manage it. And I choose to manage it this way. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing with the same attitude, disposition, and so forth through whatever I have to go through to get to where this phase of my journey on this planet is taking me, and I'm at peace with that.
Dr. Harry Edwards, renowned sports sociologist, educator, and activist, as well as a husband, father, and grandfather of two, always living life his way.
What does a painting of jazz legend John Coltrane the Black Panther Party, and film director Spike Lee all have in common. Ryan Yamamoto shows us how a San Francisco artist and gallery owner is hoping to turn that painting into a permanent home for a local church that has been on the move for more than 50 years.
We grew up with this image.
Before you can understand what the Reverend Archbishop sees,
Well, when I see this painting, I see God.
you first need to listen to what he hears. Where every note, every sound takes him on a spiritual journey through the music of jazz.
John Coltrane said he will remake us. He always has, and he always will.
In 1969, Bishop King and his wife, Mother Marina, founded the St. John Coltrane Church in San Francisco, based on the teachings of Christ through the music of saxophone legend John Coltrane and his iconic album, A Love Supreme. Today, service is held inside a tiny theater in Fort Mason, where for the past 53 years his church has moved from location to location. The bishop now hoping to find a permanent home.
If you're going to leave something to a generation, you got to at least let them somewhere to sit, somewhere to stand, somewhere to be.
That is when local artist and gallery owner Peter Shaw came up with an idea.
So this has been around the world.
By taking this painting of John Coltrane and turning it into a fundraiser for the church and their Coltrane Arts Foundation.
And we've recently made a limited edition of 20 with 4 artist proofs of this original Coltrane portrait work.
It was enough to get the attention of film director Spike Lee, who paid the gallery a visit while on a trip to San Francisco.
The cool thing in the photo, Spike is looking at this painting, and he's wearing all San Francisco Giants gear.
Right. So that's the most unique part about Spike's visit here, is that he was here the day of the memorial for Willie Mays.
And Spike Lee wanted to buy the original. And we said, no, we're not selling it.
Not ready to let go of the original that still means so much to him and his family. A painting that was gifted to the church in 1972 by Huey P. Newton and Emory Douglas of the Black Panther Party.
Having it being painted by Emory Douglas, he was the minister of culture for the Black Panther Party. And his art was really, as I knew it, was about revolution and change.
A change that Bishop King prays others will see.
So when I see this, it's like looking at God.
The manifestation of a painting into a permanent home through the sound and image of A Love Supreme.
Over history, Black inventors and innovators have been behind a lot more than we likely know about. Kara St. Cyr introduces us to a San Francisco woman who's looking to change that and give credit where credit is due.
African Americans are responsible for countless inventions that ease inconveniences we encounter daily, like the automatic elevator door, the carbon light bulb filament, even the modern hairbrush. These innovations have silently contributed to American society for decades, even centuries. Yet most of the brains behind these projects remain largely unknown. But the question is why? Dr. Carolyn Ransom Scott set out to answer this question back in the 80s. In her quest, she's highlighted hundreds of Black inventors. To her, Black innovation is often hidden behind a shroud of misconceptions.
There seems to be a built-in standard procedure that you don't bring in information that will allow people to know that we are a nation that contributes to the world around us through science.
Scott continued her research of Black inventors. Since then, she's amassed a large collection of names and inventions. Each story goes on a bookmark she makes. Eric Williams is one of her most recent bookmarks.
I've got to do a bookmark on this man.
And he's one of the Bay Area's most prolific inventors that you've probably never heard of. But without him, the medical industry wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, that was the last good picture. Oh, look, yeah, the young tinkerer.
His daughter and niece, Shanisa and Nefertiti Williams, say Eric's inventive streak started as a young boy growing up in Bayview Hunters Point. He was the tinkerer of his siblings.
He was the one who would figure out how things worked. You know, take something from one thing and put it together and turn it into something else.
Eric constructed skateboards from discarded piles of wood in nearby junkyards, go-karts for neighborhood kids, and even built his own bicycle when he was 13.
That's Lil Ecky. That's Ecky right there.
All of these experiences led him to San Jose University and eventually Advanced Stent Technologies.
The first thing I remember him coming home with or having at his workstation was the cardiovascular catheter.
Cardiac stents are used to remove blockages from coronary arteries. Williams' updated design included special protrusions, which helped better prevent heart attacks and drastically reduced instances of open heart surgery. His invention allows people who get this procedure to avoid hospital stays altogether.
Heart disease is like heavy in the Black community, and he may have had some people that he loved that was affected by it that might have driven him to do that.
Williams would leave behind more than 20 different patents for medical plastic technology when he died in 2014.
It's up to us to share the legacy, and eventually, even though we'll continue to share it, it will be out there on the forefront.
Scott's bookmarks were featured in an exhibition called Black Excellence, Black Innovation in 2022. Williams was among the many inventors shown.
They overlook us, they underserve us, and look at this young man saving millions of lives.
Dr. Scott is making sure his work is never forgotten, his legacy now living forever on a bookmark.
Still ahead, a Bay Area native who has risen to the top in sports journalism. Now, he's making sure he's paying it forward. Our celebration of Black History Month takes us into the world of sports. Mark Spears' meteoric rise to the top of his profession did not come without bumps in the road. This son of San Jose has never forgotten where he came from. Now, he's not just paying it forward, he's paving that bumpy road too.
I've been around like literally all the greatest players in the history of the game.
Before SportsCenter.
I remind myself that I get paid to write about basketball for a living.
Before his induction to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame.
Coach, in terms of Scotty, when did you believe in him?
Before his position as senior NBA writer for ESPN's Anscape, Mark Spears was a San Jose kid with dreams of playing in the NBA until one day in the 7th grade.
There was a guy from the Warriors that came down and spoke to us, and I just went to listen to him in hopes of some free tickets, t-shirt, bumper sticker, something. But what he ended up giving me was some words that like changed my life. For some reason, he pointed at me and he said, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, I want to play for y'all. And he's like, well, what if you can't? What if you get hurt? What if your career doesn't last that long? What are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. And he said, well, my best advice to you is if you can combine what you love most in life with what you do best in school, you'll find a career that you're happy with every day.
He wrote a letter to sports writer Mark Purdy at the San Jose Mercury News.
This is what you got to do. Read as much as you can, write as much as you can, work for your school newspaper.
My first job didn't pay much, but I was covering University of Arkansas, Nolan Richardson basketball and football, Southeastern Conference. That's a heck of a job to get coming out of college.
The Denver Post to cover the Nuggets. Boston Globe for the Celtics. Along the way, something happened that fueled his desire to pay it forward, especially for those who looked like him.
Well, there was a prominent writer who I'll leave his name out today, but certainly it's a name that people would remember, who blew me off real bad at the beginning of my career. And, it was somebody that looked like me. And that really burned me at the time, and I kind of felt like if I'm ever in a position to help other people, I want to help them and not make them feel the way I felt.
Spears never stops mentoring.
Mark Spears, as always, thank you very much.
Oakland native Malika Andrews, host of NBA Today and NBA Countdown on ESPN.
Mark has so many students, so many young journalists that he takes under his wing because he takes so seriously the responsibility of paying it forward. He sees his career as something that only happened because of all of the people who helped pave the way for him.
He's always helping young people and different people, and it's something that I admire him because he's very nonchalant about it.
Spears received the ultimate honor for an NBA writer in 2023, the Kirk Gowdy Award for journalism that welcomes enshrinement into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame.
Pops, I know you're watching. Thank you and love you.
Last year, his father Curtis lost a 7-year battle with ALS, but he did get a father-son moment with a Hall of Fame ring.
To take the ring to his house in New Orleans and for him to see Spears on the side and see Hall of Fame on the side, man, like as beautiful as every moment was at the Hall of Fame, he wasn't around much longer after that, but to know that every time I put on that finger, like that finger's been on my father's hand, like that's the best part, man.
He has diversified as a TV producer for the Conversations Project on Hulu and is an ambassador for Kendall Jackson Wines. But he will always be that caring, giving kid from San Jose.
There were like doors closed along the way that certainly were frustrating and didn't make sense at the time or were painful at the time, or ways I was treated that others weren't treated. Even like I remember going to a game at Mississippi State and they wouldn't rent me a car there because I was black. Or I had an editor mess with my copy because I was black. So there's a lot of things like I wonder if this door would open faster. But I'm here, I made it, and hopefully me getting here will inspire the next group.
The late Roy Clay was known as the godfather of Silicon Valley, and his sons say their father's life journey can be a source of inspiration for a whole new generation. Our Max Darrow gives us an inside look at their book for kids.
There are a lot of lessons the late Roy Clay Sr. taught his children. So it's only fitting that one of them is on the title of the book his sons Roy Jr. and Rodney wrote about his life. It's called Dream Big, the Roy Clay Sr. story.
Just that image right on the front. You see anybody, you can identify with that. You just have these eyes of wonder, like, I'm going to take on the world. And that's what your dad really did.
Yeah, my dad was, I guess now in today's terms, you'd call him a visionary.
So it kind of symbolizes a lot of what my dad was doing throughout his life.
The book tells their father's story, from the racial barriers he had to live through and overcome as a child in small-town Missouri, to making his way to the Bay Area, where he'd go on to lead the team that built HP's first computer and ultimately become known as the godfather of Silicon Valley.
We wrote it in a form that kids can digest it.
That was an intentional choice. The Clay brothers want their father's story to be a source of inspiration for this generation and the ones to come.
Just getting them to read something and something that's inspiring, and at the same time giving them a message of what they could become. The fact that they could overcome all obstacles to achieve what they want to achieve, if they focus on it, if they put their minds to it.
Roy Sr. died in the fall of 2024. His sons remember a supportive father.
My dad let us be who we were.
He was just a constant inspiration.
My dad being my dad, who he was, he always wanted to give back. His motto was improve the quality of life for everybody. So even in his passing, we said we have to continue his legacy, what he wanted, his message. So we said, let's do a children's book. And something that will be useful, not only to parents, but to kids.
If there's one takeaway you'd want them to have, what would it be?
So when one door closes, there's always another one that's available to open. And a lot of times it can be a better door.
Never let anything stand in your way, and keep working towards your goals, even if it's not easy, just keep that bright light, follow that bright light that you can see in your horizon, and keep going and going and going and going.
A reminder we can all take to heart.
As we celebrate Black History Month, we spotlight an inspiring high school senior from St. Mary's College High School in Berkeley, Serena Griffin. She's a published author and activist, but is also making waves by empowering young girls of color. She founded a program at Oxford Elementary using poetry and storytelling to build confidence. Recently honored at the White House as a community leader, Serena credits Cinnamon Girl, her second family, for supporting her growth, and now she's giving back by helping girls express their voices and embrace their identities.
I kind of just like see myself in them. I think there's something specifically about working with young girls of color who, I know myself growing up, I didn't always have all of these outlets or these tools to express my voice in the most effective or powerful way that it can be used.
Since 2003, Cinnamon Girl has served more than 3,000 girls, offering mentorship and leadership development. We want to thank you for joining us in our celebration of Black History Month. You can find these stories and more on our website, kpix.com.